maybe just a very simple one. It's just a question of is this the correct way in viewing like unwholesome feeling? As in, like, I don't push it away. I compassionately try to understand why it's coming out, or does, because sometimes I wondering if I just say, oh, I don't need to hold on to it, maybe a bit unskillful, because sometimes I feel
Okay.
that maybe I just need some time to digest it. So yeah.
All right. So your question is basically then of why do bad feelings show up? What's the
Um,
origin? What's the reason for them?
um, yes, but also more that is it a skillful way to sometimes, because I my maybe I have some misunderstanding with um, the way to deal with it. Sometimes I feel that uh, I may have to, because people so often give me as advice to say just let it go, but sometimes I feel that just letting it go like that actually it just comes back more. So I feel that I have to like not letting it go so quickly, because if I let go of it quickly, it just comes back or something I'm not understanding.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll work with that. That in fact the advice that you're getting is correct advice. But let me take a moment to introduce. This is the Sunday afternoon Sangha, and we've got a nice crowd here today. Um, about half of us are in Thailand, and the rest are somewhere out there, UK, Europe, someplace. Just a bit late for people in the US to come on. So, welcome to the Sunday Sangha call. And today we're going to, let us say, have a potpourri or a hodgepodge of questions. And the first thing that we can do is to review good practice from Paul's perspective. And that Paul was asking the question about it, what is correct practice? What is good practice? And that the answer to that is basically around the issue of the Eightfold Noble Path. That if we're practicing the Eightfold Noble Path, then that's the practice. And the Eightfold Noble Path is sometimes, oftentimes, in fact, confused with the word meditation. And that meditation is in the West something that we don't do here. And that I would not say that I'm a meditation teacher. In fact, the better thing to say is Dhamma, that this is all about Dhamma. This is not about meditation. And that correct practice starts with right view. And so we'll talk about right view for just a moment because it's an integral part. In fact, the Buddha says that the practice starts with right view. Now, we have to make sure that we're talking about what is right view, a noble view, because the word view confuses people. That in fact, when we hear the word view, we think of a viewpoint, or we think about a world view. We think about how to see the world in a conceptualized kind of way, and that this falls into two main categories, and that is ordinary right view and wrong view. And wrong view generally means that people can go and do what they want to do, seeking the things that they don't have, and do whatever they want to do to get those things, and that they can get away with it. They can get what they want without having to pay for it. An example of that is the Democrats want new highways, and they're not going to get them without paying for them. And so the Democrats in politics is actually a kind of a liberal point of view, which is a wrong view of thinking that things come easy, to where if you're doing something, there's always a cost, always a price. This gets back into the point of the question about free will. If will was absolutely free, then you could do anything that you wanted to do, and there would be no repercussions for it. And then we have the other side of the world, the conservative world, which comes to that point of saying, no, you can't get away with it. We're going to make sure that you can't get away with it. That someone owns this place. It can either be a sky daddy, somebody up in the sky, like a god or something. It can be the karma machine, that you got to pay your dues. It can be, in fact, the rich who are trying to take over a government so that they don't have to pay taxes. And so they're not willing to give services because they know that if their services are given to the ordinary people, that the rich are going to have to pay for it. And so the conservative view is the ordinary right view. And you can see that in the way that children are raised and sent to school, in the sense of you got to do what you're told to do. You can't get away with shirking your responsibilities. If you do wrong, we're going to make sure that we've got either cops or a militia, an army. We're going to get aunts, uncles, school teachers. Everybody's going to gang up together on that kid to make sure that he can't get away with it. And the kids, I mean, you were a kid once. You knew you could get away with almost anything if you were smart enough. If you could hide, if you were tricky enough, you could get away with it. And so basically, the ordinary right view is that you can't get away with it because we've got rebirth and reincarnation. We've got heavens and hells in this world and the other worlds. We've got gods and devils, and we've got priests. We're going to go get a priest. If you misbehave yourself and the cops can't catch you, we're going to go get a priest to make sure that the whatever the karma machine is goes and digs you up just to kick your ass. Now, these are the ordinary kinds of views that people have. Ordinary right view and ordinary wrong view. But the Buddha doesn't teach a view like that. That in fact, the Buddha teaches not a view that's kind of a noun or a concept. He's talking about it in the sense of a verb, in the sense of looking, viewing. Stop making up stories about what you see and continue to look. That's the big point, is don't come to any conclusions. Just keep looking. That in fact, if you do come to a conclusion about what you see, something's going to change and your conclusion is going to have holes in it. So don't come to a conclusion. Don't come to a viewpoint. Don't come to a worldview. Don't become conservative or liberal. Just watch what's going on. This is the number one point about the teaching of the Buddha, is that you've got to look at what's happening. Now, it's got a good close friend, and the Pali word for that is sati. And sati is almost always in English translated as mindfulness. Everybody here has heard the word mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, meditation, vipassana, insight, all of that stuff. All right? So, sati doesn't mean mindfulness. What it basically means is to come out of your storytelling, your views, and see things the way that they are, to wake up. Wakey is the best definition that I know of sati, is to look at remember to wake up and look at what's happening. Like to wake up and smell the coffee. Well, coffee smells, that's an olfactory, that's a sense. So basically, waking up to smell the coffee means wake up and take a look. Wake up and see what's going on. These are the two primary ingredients that do exist in systems like the Mahasi method. When they talk about noting, they say to wake up and note, look at what the mind is doing. And they have part of the answer. But a lot of people, once they can see what's wrong, then they look even deeper at what's wrong. This is, in fact, the question that Ivan is asking. What started all of this? Where did this stuff come from? I can't just drop it right now. I got to know all about it. And that's not the teaching of the Buddha at all. The teaching of the Buddha is don't bother where it came from. Here it is. Don't worry about the monk right behind you and whether or not he flew into the room. Recognize now that he's there. That in fact, this is a point, it happened on a regular basis that I would walk into a room. It even happens here at the house. I can walk in and Tam is doing the dishes, and all of a sudden she jumps with big surprise. Where did you come from? Well, I walked in here. That's how I got here. I just didn't make any noise. I didn't alert her that I was coming. And so she gets the idea that I flew into the room. Monks can fly, so they say. Basically, what they do is that they just walk around while nobody's watching. There they are, and somebody makes up the story like Ivan is making up. Well, where did you come from? The answer is irrelevant. It doesn't matter where you came from. The point is, here you are. Don't make up stories about where things come from. Just get it. Here it is. That in fact, there's a point that these are called the four imponderables. And one of the four imponderables is how did things get started? Well, the reason people ask those questions is because they weren't there watching when things got started. If they had been awake and watching what was going on, they could have seen how those things got started, especially the unwholesome thoughts. But people also ask questions about, well, wait a minute, I'm talking about what happened a long time ago. I mean, how did this country become in existence? Or basically, what about the Big Bang Theory? And the answer to that is, you don't know. You weren't there. I wasn't there. I don't care. What we need to know is what's happening right now, not where did stuff come from. That in fact, while we're pondering and worrying about where things come from, where did that monk come from? Because he's here now. He must have flown into the room because I didn't hear him walk in. Those are the things that prevent us from being in the reality. To say hello to the monk. Here he is. You can see him. But instead, what people do is they get surprised. Oh, where did you come from? That's an irrelevant question. You don't need to know where he came from. You need to say hello. Here he is. So these are the 2 points about waking up and seeing what's there without worrying about or thinking about where things came from or how they got started. But that's, again, just part of the story. The more important part of the story is, now that you see what's happening, what are you going to do about it? Now, in some forms of meditation that are called the Mahasi method in the West, what they do about it is they look closely. They look deeply. They want to find out where this stuff comes from. That this dukkha is associated with that dukkha. This unhappiness is associated with that happiness or that unhappiness. And now we're looking at one unhappy thing after another, trying to chase it back to the source. And all we're doing is just dwelling in unhappiness rather than doing the important thing. And the important thing is right noble effort to make a change. Once you see the dukkha, once you see what's going on, you don't have to worry about where it came from. What you need to do is to fix it, to change it, to make a change, to come out of our dukkha immediately. That the Buddha's model is a change model. It is not a model of contemplation. And that's what the word meditation actually means. It means trying to figure something out. And what we're doing instead is we've already figured it out just enough. Just a little dab of understanding that this is dukkha. We don't have to worry about where it came from. What we need to do instead is fix it right there on the spot. A stitch in time will save 9, so to speak. And most people, after they've made 9 bad stitches, now they go back to look at what went wrong. And the right thing to do is just unravel it and then come back and start again. That you start looking at what you're doing, and then you're not going to make any bad stitches. So, this is the real teaching. This is the Eightfold Noble Path. And Anapanasati is designed to fulfill the Eightfold Noble Path in the sense of waking up, taking a look, and making a change. That in fact, step 9 of Anapanasati is that waking up and looking, to look what kind of mind state that you have. Now, a lot of people think that all they're going to do is just look at their thought. What kind of thoughts are you having? But it's also quite useful to look at what kind of mind state am I in? Am I in a joyful mind state? Am I in a victim's mind state? Am I in a dull, sharp, focused, unfocused? What kind of mind state are we in? This is something that can be and should in fact be investigated. This is part of right noble view, is to look at the kind of mind state that we have, as well as looking at kind of thoughts, because the mind state that we're in influence and condition the thoughts. And also, when we're waking up, we can look at what the body is doing. Is the body comfortable, relaxed, or is it in pain? Is it uncomfortable? Because if the body's uncomfortable, the mind's going to be in an uncomfortable state also. And so it's important in our practice to make sure that the body is in a safe place, a secure place. In fact, better to practice is in seclusion, when you're not around anything that's possibly dangerous. This is why the Buddha says, go to the forest, go to a foot of a tree. When he talks about going to the forest, a lot of you will think, oh, well, there's a jungle there. There's lions and snakes and crocodiles and all of that kind of stuff. And all of that stuff is dangerous. But really what he's pointing to is there's no village there. And the village is the real danger. To get away from the village, to get away from the people, to go to a foot of a tree, go to an empty hut, go to a pile of straw and sit down and become comfortable, not necessarily cross-legged. That in fact in that passage where it says, go to the forest, a foot of a tree, an empty hut, a pile of straw, it then says to sit down, but the Pali word does not say cross-legged. That was a translator's mistake, and it has been propagated through almost all of the translations. You don't have to sit cross-legged. You don't have to sit any way at all. What you need to do instead of looking at the kind of posture you have, looking at is, does it fulfill the duties of, is it a comfortable posture? And often sitting up straight is more comfortable than leaning one way or the other because of gravity. That so long as you're sitting up straight, you're not being pulled one way or the other. That in fact, this is also true about your attitude. If you have an upright attitude, it's not going to get bent one way or the other. sort of like looking at a tree that's being felled. The tree will always fall in the direction that it's leaning, and good woodcutters know how to cut the wood so that the tree will lean. And sometimes they'll use ropes in order to make it sure that it's going to lean the direction that they want, because they don't want it to lean a few feet over and tear up the neighbor's fence, or way over and tear up the neighbor's house. They want it to lean so that it's going to fall exactly where they want it. Well, we're in the position that we don't want any leaning at all. We want to be upright. Upright in our thoughts, upright in our posture, because that's the most comfortable. No falling over that way, so to speak. And so in the practice of Anapanasati, we work with all four aspects of the body. The body itself, the feelings, the mental states that we have, our attitudes, and also the thoughts that we have, the things that are happening very quickly. Now, in fact, you could say that the Satipatthana is laid out as body which is physical, like an earth, that the emotions are fluid, that the mind and the mind's objects are like fire, and that the thoughts that we have are like smoke or in the wind. And that's the ones that move the fastest. So the body is quite stable. It may take years before you notice that it's changing. Our feelings will last sometimes days or weeks. Our attitude can change within a few minutes, and our thoughts will happen every second. And so we start to pay attention to all four of these aspects to find out what is wholesome, what is not wholesome. And the thing that's moving the fastest would be the thoughts. And so we can start to pay attention to those, what kind of thoughts we're having, and change them. Because within the Satipatthana, within these four elements of the body, the feeling, the mind states, and the mind's objects, they interact with one another. They condition one another. They make changes that affect each other. And so the mind objects will actually affect the mind state. The mind state will actually affect the way that we feel. The way that we feel actually affects the body. But it goes in the opposite direction too, that if the body is sick, then our feelings will be down. It'll check, and then we can't think straight. But we can turn things around to the point that, and the way that I would say it is, yeah, the body is sick, but the mind is not. And in fact, an upright mind will help the body to heal. But if we say, oh, poor me, my body hurts, then the body is actually going to heal more slowly. And so this is the way that we would start to practice, is by recognizing that we're going to make changes to all four of these things. We're going to change the body. Mike, while you're typing, can you turn your video or your camera off, because I hear your typing noises.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So when we are watching the mind, we can also start to notice what kind of mental state that we're in. We can also start to look at how we feel. That in fact, quite often students will say, oh, while I'm meditating, I begin to feel anxiety. I feel tension. I feel uptight. And the answer to that is that new? Does your meditation make you uptight and anxious? Or is that an old habit that you've had that you haven't been looking at? And that those tensions and anxieties actually are conditioning the way that your mind works, and it's also conditioning the thoughts. But if we can make sure that we have wholesome thoughts, like everything is okay and everything is fine, then we can begin to change our mind state And then the anxiety, the feeling, the emotion will subside. That's especially true if we use the breathing to help, which is part of the body. So using long, deep, easy breaths will help relieve the anxiety, but having thoughts about the breath and having long, deep, easy thoughts will help. Now, the one thing that's interesting is that um, in order to have long, easy, deep breath, we have to actually do the mind. The mind's the one that's controlling the body to breathe. And so the only way to have long, deep, easy breathing is to have long, deep, easy thinking to keep the breath that way. So this is the basic practice, the anapanasati, based upon the actual process, is the Eightfold Noble Path. To wake up, take a look, and then make a change. To wake up, take a look at what the mind is doing and make a change. To wake up, take a look at what the mind states are and make a change. To wake up, to look at what the body is doing, start making changes so that the body will become more relaxed, and then wake up, take a look at how we feel, and then start to change the way that we feel based upon the fact that we can change the way that the mind is leaning, our attitude. Now, I should take a moment to point out that every human being that's born is born with an attitude. So every human being that's born is born with the attitude of being a victim. We can't feed ourselves. All we can do is suck, but we can't even find the tit. And so we have to have the tit put in our face. We can't change our diapers. We have to have someone else change our diaper. We have somebody to put food in front of the child. We can't even walk. We've got to be carried around. So we start off in quite a mess. When elephants are born, they can get up and walk. When horses are born, they can get up and walk. When deer are born, they can get up and walk. When puppies are born, they can get up and walk. Even though their eyes may be closed and their hearing is not good, at least they can stand up and walk. But humans, takes them 2 years, 18 months, something like that. So humans are born really as a victim. It's part of the nature that we're in. And that as a young child, we begin to peel our oats. There's a thing called the terrible twos, or the 2-year-old tyrant. That's when we begin to gain our power. And what do the parents do? They rob us of that power. Well, they will force us to say, no, you can't do it. We're the boss here. We've got the right ordinary view that you can't get away with it. You can't be a little tyrant. And then we put them back in their place. Keep the children as victims. And then, when we're walking around like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, the parents want to say, hold my hand. You can't go off and do what you want to do. You got to be doing what you're told to do. When you get into school, now you got to do what you're told to do. Learn your ABCs, learn your 1, 2, 3s. And the further you go into school, the further you go into doing what you're told to do. And almost all of us make the mistake of thinking that we're doing what we want to do, when in fact we just learned that from somebody else. We saw somebody else do it, and we imitate it. Monkey see, monkey do. And so we start off and maintain the position of victims. So now as an adult, we're sitting down in meditation, and that old attitude about being a victim is there. And so we ask questions. Oh, well, what's this and what's that? We think that data and information is going to save us. That in fact, knowledge may save us, but knowledge is looking at what's real rather than looking at some old data. So, How we're going to practice then is by beginning to recognize that we've got an attitude problem. That in fact, we all start off with the doubt about who can I get to help me. This is where Christianity and religions come in. They're Johnny on the spot to say, oh, you come to our church, you pay our dues, and we'll fix you up with the big guy, and he'll save you. Because you can't save yourself. This is actually part of Christianity, you know, that you need a plastic Jesus on the dashboard of your truck or you're going to wreck the darn thing. You can't do it on your own. There's this original sin thing, you know, and you need Jesus as your savior, you know, and so they're capitalizing on your victimhood. And so we ask questions. The first question is, who can we get to save us? The second question, when we finally get around to the point that ain't nobody going to save you from your sin, nobody's going to help you, you're going to have to do it yourself. That brings in an even bigger question. And that bigger question is, am I up to the task? I've been a victim and I've had my diaper changed and I've had the grace of God and I've had forgiveness and I've gotten away with it only so much. And now I recognize I'm going to have to do it myself. Am I up to the task? This is where Anapanasati really, really comes in. Because we begin to do something that's actually easy to do, and we do it over and over again and start to build the attitude of success, the attitude of I can do this, the attitude of no matter how much hindrances or how much unwholesome thoughts or how much obstructions I have in the mind, I can't come out of it and see things the way that they really are. This is the real change in the attitude of stopping to be a victim and start having the attitude, I'm successful. I can do this. And we practice this over and over and over again, doing something that we can actually do. And what is it that we can actually do? We can actually change the thoughts we're having. We can actually do this change. We can actually change our attitude in this moment, out of the attitude of a victim into the attitude of never mind, start again, let me take a deep breath and relax. And if we keep doing that over and over and over again, we begin to get the idea that, hey, we can do this. We can become successful at it. It is possible that I can learn to control my mind. This, by the way, I'm introducing as the fourth element on the Eightfold Noble Path. The fourth element is called Samma Sankappa, and it has a whole lot to do with confidence. You got to build up the confidence. The Pali word, by the way, is Shraddha or Sada. The ability to know that I can do this. I can change my attitude. I can change my thoughts. Now, Ivan, you were asking this question before, and the question that you were asking actually comes from the victim's position of, oh, I can't change this until I know why it happened. And the answer is you don't need to know why. You just make the change. You don't have to go victimize yourself saying, oh, well, I need help, I need solutions, I need answers, and then I'll change. We can just make the change. That's an important aspect of the way that we practice. Now, here's the point about that, is that by being a victim, we've got no free will. We got to do what we were told to do. That in fact, the telling of us of what to do is actually our destiny. You got to do it this way. You got to do it that way. And if you keep doing it the same way over and over again, that becomes kind of a destiny. And then, being a victim, we blame destiny on some higher power. We said God did it. God set my destiny. I can't change it. I've got no free will. There's many things that you can find in our language that supports that. Have you ever heard of the phrase, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword? Isn't that a point of destiny? It also has a lot of reality. You can imagine that the swordsman at the age of 20 is very good with that sword. He's been practicing it for years, and he'll whack anything. He'll whack steak. He'll whack a sapling. He'll whack a banana tree. He'll whack bamboo. And now if you get in his way, he'll whack you. But if he continues to use that sword at 25 and then 30 and then 50 and now at 75, he's still using that sword, guess what? He's going to slow down and somebody's going to whack him. He who lives by the sword eventually is going to get whacked with one. Sometime or another, we've got to make a change and put down that sword. So, looking at the fact that we have habits, we can change the habits, that the habits are what defines our destiny. Here's a little point. The thoughts that you have lead to the feelings. The feelings that you have lead to your speech. The speech that you have leads to your actions. The actions that you have lead to your habits. And the habits you have lead to your destiny. Thoughts, feelings, speech, action, habits, destiny. Each one of them takes longer and longer. Your thoughts are very quick. Your feelings are a little slower. Your speech is coming in. Then we have behavior, and the behavior over and over again will lead to habits, and the habits lead then to our destiny. So where is the easy place to change our destiny? Is to change our habits, or maybe to change our actions, or maybe to change our speech, or maybe to change the way that we feel, or maybe the easiest way to do it is start by changing our thoughts. Those are the easy things to change. And so if we begin to change our thoughts moment by moment, we can begin to change our attitude, we can change our feelings, we can change the way that we think, the speech, we can change our actions, we can, in fact, change our habits. And when we really change our habits, we can actually change our destiny. Now, the question about free will is that do you have free will, or do you, in fact, have no will at all? And they see it as a kind of black and white. You're either run by your habits and run by your destiny, or maybe somebody, some big god or some common machine or some sky daddy or whatever, he's the one that sets your destiny. But in fact, the reality is that our habits set our destiny. Our habits set our destiny. So if you start making those little changes one after another, you can begin to change your destiny. But that doesn't make it free will. But in fact, the whole point is that nothing is free until you are free. And I'll use the word free in the sense of freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. You got to lose your habits. You got to lose your actions. You got to lose your speech. You got to lose your feelings. And you got to start thinking in a way that is ways to get rid of this stuff. All of these old bad habits only fall away once you start making some changes in your actions. And the easiest way to change your actions is to stop your bad habits, to stop your bad action. Another way of looking at it is, in order for you to stop your bad behavior and your bad actions, is to shut your mouth, to shut up. Don't talk yourself into being angry. And the way that we shut our mouths is by stop feeling bad. And the way that we can stop feeling bad is by changing our thoughts, which is the easy way into it. So, the answer to that is that there is no such thing as a free will, but there is such a thing as will. It's just expensive. It's going to cost you. You're going to have to make those changes. And if you keep making those changes over and over again, you can begin to have will. And the more will that you have and the more you exercise it, the better it gets. And the more you stop running your mouth, the more you stop behaving badly, the more you stop having those bad habits, then you come down to not having much of anything at all. And that's where real freedom comes in. Freedom is just another word for no more bad habits. You got nothing left to lose. You've finished all your defilements, and all you have now is sweetness and kindness and a big smile, and that's all you've got left. But that will was not easy. We had to practice. We had to put the right effort in over and over and over and over again. And that's why we say that free will is not free. It's expensive. It's going to take some work. But if you put in the work, you'll wind up in a state of having free will. And free will in that regard would be no place to go and nothing to do. Nothing's happening. Everything is okay. Everything is easy. And why? Is because you've become satisfied. We don't run our mouths because we don't have anything to say, and we don't have anything to say because we like everything that's happening. We're completely satisfied. So free will then is a state of freedom because we're free from worry. We're free from anxiety. We're free from all problems because we got no problems. That's what free will really is. But guess what? You'd think that free will means that now I can go rob the bank and get away with it. Oh, no. Free will is I don't want to rob the bank because I don't need anything that the bank has. I got everything I need. I'm satisfied with how things are now. So this is how we work with free will. Where did Paul go? Oh, you turned your camera off. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Paul,
I'm still with you.
Okay. So
I'm just running around my house right now.
all right. So Amrit, did I answer your question about will and free will?
Yes, definitely. Dhammarato.
Okay. Ivan, did
Satisfied
I
with the
answer?
answer.
Go ahead, Amrit.
I said I'm satisfied with the answer.
All right. Satisfaction guaranteed. So, Ivan, do you see that you're never going to...
My question.
Paul? What
I
was
said,
that?
and you definitely gave me a good answer on my question.
All right. So, Ivan, do you see that you don't have to figure out how things got started?
I definitely agree because I have the tendency to investigate too much. And I found the practice of just seeing it that it is here now, and how do I just what's the next step? I do found it to be it almost we almost also feel that it's more effortless to do it this way for some reason. Because I'm not sure. Like I feel that if I investigate too much, it feels too much effort.
Okay. There is a concept that if you're lost, the way to become unlost is to retrace your steps. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
But that retracing our steps is exactly what you're talking about. Let's figure out how we got where we are so that we can get back to where we were. But when you were back then, you were going someplace, and you're back where you started. You didn't go where you wanted to go because you got lost along the way, and you retraced your steps. So you're actually going backwards when you're looking for how things got started.
Yes.
That we don't want to find out what happened and how we got here. We want to know how can we get right where we are to a good destination. And the answer to that in this practice is to change the thoughts right now, to change it from unwholesome thoughts. Don't worry about how we got here. Make a change.
Yes.
Make a change. That's the way that we get someplace, is by making a change. And we already know what kind of change to make is to come out of the unwholesome into the wholesome, to come out of our attitude of a victim into the attitude of a winner, to come out of our emotions into being at peace, being in a state of satisfaction, being content, being successful. These are the feelings that we want to have, not the feelings of anger, remorse, sadness, frustration. All of those feelings we don't need. So let's stop having those kind of feelings, and the way that we can is by literally talking yourself into feeling good. That in fact everybody here has been doing this. We have always had bad feelings because we talked ourselves into bad feelings. Now it's time to talk ourselves into good feelings. We've always talked ourselves into bad feelings. Now it's time to talk our way into good feelings. We can start with everything is okay, everything is fine. Yeah, go ahead.
So I also understand that aversion to bad feeling doesn't help. Like if I catch myself averse to bad feeling, I can tell myself it is just a feeling. Is that the more skillful approach?
Right. But the victim wants to know how it got started.
Yes.
The victim wants to retrace his steps. The victim wants to go backwards so that he can figure things out. The answer is we don't need to figure anything out. All we need to do is to make a change for the positive. So, Mike, do you have any questions?
Yes. So I'm curious what you mean by talking yourself into, like, by changing thoughts. I feel like...
Yeah, having wholesome thoughts, right? Right now, like, everything's okay, everything is fine, got no worries, got no place to go and nothing to do. Wow, let's take it easy. Let's just relax. All of those are wholesome thoughts.
Okay.
So start having wholesome thoughts like, wow, this is nice. Wow, I'm satisfied with this. Another wholesome thought, a very wholesome thought would, I can do this. I can handle myself. I don't need a bully to come beat up another bully. I can put up with the bully in my own mind all by myself. I can handle it. I am successful. And if you continue that attitude and that feeling of being successful, it actually graduates into the feeling of being wealthy, that you got it all. You got everything you need. Wow, what a nice world this is. We live in a paradise. We start with those thoughts one at a time of everything is all right, everything is fine, no worries, everything is easy, I can relax. I don't have to argue, I can just relax. Then we can go into the kind of thoughts of, and words to say is, I can do this. No matter how obstructed the mind gets, I can come out of that obstruction and be okay. I can see things the way that they really are. And eventually from that, we come to the point of, I'm on top of the world. I got it made. Got no place to go now for sure. I'm wealthy. I got more than I need. I could be generous and kind to other people rather than wanting them to be generous and kind to me. The major attitude change. Being wealthy, you got all you need. But it takes one thought at a time.
Dhammarato, there's a saying that it is okay to not be okay. And is it fair to say that it is possible to have wholesome thoughts while you are not okay? Like that can coexist. I'm not sure.
They can cause what?
Like coexist. I mean, like it doesn't have to be binary. Like if you are in a terrible situation, you can in that terrible position at the same time.
The best thing to do when you're in a terrible situation is to get out of that terrible situation. If the situation itself is terrible, then get out of it. Go get yourself into seclusion. Go find a nice place to be. Don't hang around dangerous people. I would not suggest you practice anapanasati or any kind of meditation at a police station or in jail. You got to get away from it all. That's the first thing. The second thing is that then you got to get away from it mentally. I mean, you can leave the police station and go and be in seclusion, but you're still thinking about the police station. No, you can leave that too. So get yourself into a safe place and then begin to have safe thoughts that you are safe, you're secure, that your life is not dangerous. And that's a major point for practitioners of anapanasati, is that they keep coming back to anxiety and fear. It's just old habits. We need to change those habits. And the way that we change those habits is by changing our language, our thoughts, coming out of dangerous kind of thoughts into wholesome. Everything is okay. Got no problems, no worries. Everything is safe. And fairly soon you'll begin to feel safe. That you can condition the way that you feel by conditioning your mind. To have the attitude of safety, then you can feel safe. And the way you change your attitude or the state of mind that you're in is by talking yourself into it by having wholesome thoughts. Now, a lot of people will have wholesome thoughts, but they don't believe it. But the reality is that we have to stay real. You have to get into a safe place. And then you can say, right now, I'm safe, because that's real. And then you can begin to believe, I'm safe, because you are safe. And then old thoughts, old unwholesome thoughts, yeah, but I've got to write that email. Or, yeah, I've got to have a talk with the lawyer. And now we're having unwholesome thoughts again. So come back from those unwholesome thoughts. Right now, I don't have to talk to the lawyer. Right now, I don't have to write that email. Right now, I can feel safe. Right now, I can feel secure. And so we practice building that feeling up of being safe and secure, comfortable, and eventually we become satisfied, and then after that, we become successful. This is the way to practice, coming out of our unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts. But we have to believe those wholesome thoughts. And the best way to believe the wholesome thoughts is because they're real. That's why I say don't practice anapanasati at the police station, because the police station is not a safe place to practice. And in fact, even retreat places are not a safe place to practice. There's too many knees and legs and all kinds of things to distract you at a retreat. It's better to be in seclusion, where there really is no dangers. When there are no dangers in reality, we can talk ourselves into feeling safe and secure, because there's no real dangers there. An example of that, Mike, are there any snakes on the floor? Do you have any cobras wrapping themselves around your legs?
No.
No. How about crocodiles? You got a crocodile in the house?
Also no.
Okay. How about a SWAT team? Do you have a SWAT team breaking down your door?
No, not yet.
How about a Russian mafia crowd? Are they breaking in?
They
Got
left.
anybody got a gun to your head? Okay, well, those are wholesome thoughts then. Well, I'm safe. Got no problems. Right now, I got no problems. But when we start thinking about all the old problems, now we don't feel safe again. So begin to have thoughts of safety. Wow, I got no bears. Wow, there are no tarantula spiders. Isn't that great? Wow, we got snakes in this neighborhood, but none of them are on the porch. So start looking at how many dangers that you don't have instead of looking at all the dangers that you do have. Recognize that you don't have any dangers. There's none. No dangers are here.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm feeling very skeptical about this whole thing. It
I
sounds
know. I can see the
extremely, it
skepticism
sounds
just dripping off
beyond
the face.
like,
It's like
horrible.
tears.
It's like this is exactly what I imagine people when you say toxic positivity, and this is exactly what I imagine by this whole movement. And the reason I feel this massive resistance is because I don't see a point. So personally,
You don't
for
see
me,
a point in feeling
no.
good. That's
No,
interesting.
well, I don't see a point in forcing thinking to do things that it's not doing.
It's going to take some effort.
Yeah.
Are you going to be wielding your sword until eventually somebody cuts you in half? That's the way that you're headed.
Yeah. So again,
You
I
need
just
to
feel like
start making some
I need
changes.
to express this resistance for me to continue this engagement. Otherwise, I would just shut down. And the way the resistance sounds for me is something like this: that I do not see a point in manipulating thinking because it's just thinking.
Yes,
I
you
feel like
must
it might make
manipulate your thinking because
Right.
otherwise you are going to continue thinking the way that you are thinking, and that's what creates your destiny.
Yes, but wouldn't
You
it make
have to
much more
start
sense to just
changing the way
be
you think.
aware of the thinking and just let it kind of gradually drop away?
Well, only if you make an effort to make it change. It's not going to drop away all by itself. It's going to build up the more habits. The same, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to build up the habit and the destiny. If you start making some changes.
Okay, so this would be my argument, and we'll go something like this: that the mind is very interested, like these thoughts, these negative thoughts people have, they keep reoccurring because they're fascinating, right? The sense of
Because
fear.
of what?
They're fascinating. So the mind is fascinated by danger, it is fascinated by discomfort, it is fascinated by anger, hatred, all these unwholesome things. And so if you
Do
just
you want to
observe.
remain fascinated?
No, but I would like to finish what I was saying. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm asking you a question now. I'm
Well,
interrupting
that's what I'm
that
trying to
thought
say, is that
process.
if you observe the thoughts, then this fascination, it fades. Then things that used to scare you no longer scare you because you see them through to the end. And this way, but by engaging with these thoughts, by actively changing them, you're actually driving what is so fascinating, by resisting this kind of thinking.
Except that there's no guarantee that that's going to happen.
Okay.
There's no guarantee that you're going to start to change automatically because you've gotten tired of doing it the old way. That's one possibility. But this is the reason why people will spend their whole lives not being happy. It's because they're not making the right effort to make a change. But things are not going to improve by themselves.
But there is
It's going to
effort
get
in the
worse.
process. It's just a different kind of effort.
Well, good luck with that. Make some change. Take some effort to make a change. Because if you don't make any efforts to make any change, things are not going to change all by themselves. No guarantee of that. But if you make the effort to make change, then you can change. But let us take any example. One example would be going on a diet. Whether the person has finally been told by the doctor, if you don't lose some weight, you're going to die. And so he does it with great fear, but he makes the change. And so going on the diet, he doesn't like it when he starts the diet, but he has to make the change. It's a conscious change, a conscious decision. So if you decide that you're going to get tired of something and then change, then you'll still have to make the change. Why can't you make the change when it's easy to make the change rather than waiting till you're desperate to make the change? Change it easily. You're already desperate enough. You're already skeptical enough. You can change your skepticism into you can handle it. You can start making changes now. You don't have to wait until somebody's chasing you down the street. The longer you wait, the harder it is. So that's the advice, is to start making some changes as soon as you remember that you can change, rather than saying, oh, I'll change later once things get desperate enough. That's very, very ordinary thinking. Right now, what you're saying is, oh, I can get away with it, at least for a while. And eventually, I'll see through it. Eventually, I'll recognize I do have to make a change. But then the changes that you make are as hard then as they would be now. Meanwhile, you've gone through a lot of dukkha that you didn't have to go through. Things are not going to change by themselves. You've got to take the effort to make the change. And you can make that effort out of desperation, or you can make it out of wisdom. So let's go ahead and finish now. Michael, do you have anything to say?
This was a very wonderful talk, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here today.
So, Paul, do you have any last remarks?
You know what? I really enjoyed that, especially about the eightfold noble path and how you aren't a meditation teacher and it's Dharma. I love that idea of the right view. I really want and how that being very important, keeping that right view. The sati, anapana sati, and. But as an exercise for the Eightfold Noble Path, but also keeping the sati, which is part of the wakey, and and that right effort, that keeping for that positive change, that we're looking for, etc. And then, and the confidence that occurs while making those changes. Thank you so much. Excellent talk. And also about, the four aspects of mind that really helped me out, because I never quite understood or had a very clear picture on that idea of the mind and the content of the mind. But when you explained it as attitude, oh yeah, the general attitude. Okay, I get it. Thank you. Sorry.
Excellent. How about you, Amrit? You got any last things to say?
Thanks, Dhammarato. I also find this very helpful as usual, and I also like this change model and making a change immediately. And it's much easier to make an immediate change than to really go and keep digging and then make a change when things are very difficult. Thank you very much.
Excellent. How about you, David?
Not much to say. I'm satisfied. I feel satisfied.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. How about you, Daniel? You have any last things to say?
All good. Thank you.
That in fact, Michael, David, Daniel are all in Thailand.
There's one last thing I'd like to mention,
Right?
is that when we talk about making a change, it's not just making a change to a positive thought. So like a positive thought that's not true would be like, nobody in the world is dying right now, right? But that's completely false. It's more so about making a change to wholesome thoughts, true thoughts. Thoughts like, yeah, everything's okay right now. It's wonderful to be alive. These are the kind of wholesome thoughts that we're looking for.
Yes. Excellent. How about you, Ivan? You have any last things to say?
Oh, no, just to elaborate on Michael's point, I also think that wholesome talk can be as simple as catching ourselves when we are digging the hole. Not necessarily placing judgment, but just by noticing it, that in itself can create some wholesome talk by just recognizing it. At least that's been my experience.
That reminds me of a little story that I'll tell. And that is the guy decides he wants to meditate and he sits down on the floor and he's having whatever thoughts. And then the next thought is, I've got the refrigerator door open. And the thought after that is, how did I get to the refrigerator? I was sitting on the floor. And the answer to that is, why am I having a thought about how do I got to the refrigerator door? Obviously, I wasn't watching. I don't know how I got to the refrigerator door, but I got the refrigerator door open. Now that I'm awake, I can close the refrigerator door and go back and sit down and practice meditation again. That we do a lot of things absent-mindedly. And now you're asking about, well, how did this get started? How did it get caught? You don't need to figure out how you got to the refrigerator door. All you have to do is wake up and recognize you're at the refrigerator now when your original intention was to sit on the floor and practice mindfulness. You don't need to have an original cause. You need to look at what you're doing before you get to the refrigerator door, instead of waking up later at the refrigerator door wondering how you got here. So, Mike, do you have any last statements to make?
No, thank you. I'll think
All
about it.
right. Well, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate this talk. We'll see you.
Thank you, Dhammarato. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dhammarato.